So this is the inside of the brood building, and this is where we keep our brood stock. The brood stock are the parent fish that we'll get eggs from. So in this area right here, which is currently empty, this is the area when they're spawning or giving us their eggs that they would come into. If you look very closely, you'll see on that middle grate that there is a gate that we can open and close. When they're spawning, we put what's called a fish trap on there, which is a basket, a funnel-shaped basket that the fish, when they go through, have a hard time getting back down. It's easier to go through the big end of the funnel than the small end of the funnel. Salmonids, including trout and salmon, when they are ready to spawn, they have a strong desire to go upstream. So by putting a fish trap here upstream from the population, the ones that are most interested in spawning are more likely to go through that fish trap than the ones that are not ready to spawn. That way we can go through and sort. We can sort out the fish that are ripe or ready to give us eggs from the ones that are not. We can only go through the ones that have run the trap and thus are more likely to be ready to spawn. That way we only have to sort a part of the population rather than sorting through 2,000 to 3,000 fish every week. So if a fish is ripe, then they would get sorted up into these spawning channels here. You'll notice that there's keyways on the walls where we can put grates, and we can divide this into 6 different pens. So we can separate out males from females and 3-year-old fish from 4-year-old fish. If the fish is not ripe, we simply throw it back down and they have to try again. So when we actually go to start spawning, which we do once a week, we then have bowls. We have a little apparatus that will hold a bowl. And so we would take a female, we anesthetize her, so we make her sleepy, and we'll pick her up and we put light pressure behind her pectoral fins. If she's ready to spawn, if she's ready to get eggs, the eggs will start flowing. And we'll collect them in the bowl, and then we'll take a male and very similarly we'll fertilize the eggs with the male. The fish then, if they're a 4-year-old fish, which we're not going to use again, we then put them in the far side channel there, where then we can stock those fish out. They generally go to kids fishing ponds, urban ponds, a bunch go over to Fontenelle again. If they're a 3-year-old fish, we put them in the upper section of that channel, and we can hold a good portion of those over to be our 4-year-old fish the following year. Any fish that we use for brood recruitment eggs, we do not keep, even if it is a 3-year-old fish. We do not want a fish to be overrepresented in the population and have more opportunity to contribute eggs. Down here are our brood population. These are 3- and 4-year-old fish. They seem to be mostly hiding there. These are 3- and 4-year-old Snake River cutthroat, which we'll be getting eggs from next spring. How many are in there? There's about 2,500 in there.
So they next spring they'll go up and spawn, you'll collect the eggs, and then what do you do with the fish?
Then we'll take them to the incubator, which is our next stop.
Okay. Which way are we going? So what is this?
So this is one of our feed rooms. This is the feed room for the brood building. And so in here, obviously we store any feed for the fish, but we also weigh out the fish for their daily ration. So many people might assume that, kind of like with an aquarium, you just willy-nilly throw feed out to the fish and they get what they get. Being that we're raising a large number of fish, and fish feed is expensive, it's important to us that we feed them economically and efficiently. So it's all mathematically based in what we give those fish. So when we're deciding how much food to give the fish, we need to know how big those fish are and how much weight, body weight there is in the population. Because the amount of food that we give them is based on their total body weight, and they get a percentage of that. So then we keep track of how much we're giving the fish per day, what size of food. So these are getting a 4 millimeter and a 6 millimeter, which we're giving a 2-to-1 ratio of, and they're getting 20 pounds per day. Then you'll see, as I mentioned before, the bigger food looks a lot like Imes cat food.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the 4 millimeter.
Cool.
Ready?
Yep.
Okay, so when we're spawning out there, we'll have coolers set up like this one, except for it would be full of water. We'd have one cooler for the 3-year-old females, and we'd have one cooler for the 4-year-old females. And they have these net bags where the eggs can go in. And when we're done spawning, we leave those eggs sitting in the cooler for 1 hour to 2 hours. Used to be 1 hour, now it's 2 hours. During that time period, they're doing what we call water hardening. So they're taking on water and becoming rigid. During that time, they can be very sticky, and we don't want to handle them, we don't want to move the cooler, because those eggs can be sticking together, and by moving them, you can jar them apart and damage their cell walls. Once the eggs are water hardened, then we can move them into this room, which is what we call the disinfection room. So we'll take the eggs and we'll set up another cooler full of iodine, a 1% solution of iodine, and we'll pull the net bag out of the one cooler and set it into the iodine, and we treat them for 2 treatments of 10 minutes, and that will kill any bacteria that might be on the outside of those eggs. We don't want to risk any contamination of the incubator, the hatchery, or any other facility that we might be sending those eggs to. While they are disinfecting, we use what's called a Von Baer trough. So on this, we would take eggs and lay them in here single file, and then we count how many eggs are in the trough. Then we use a scale that will tell us, depending on how many eggs you had in the trough, how many eggs per ounce they are running. So on the kokanee, we were running about 250 eggs per ounce. On the Snake River Cutthroat, we run more than 300 eggs per ounce. So we write all that information down. And when they're done disinfecting, we'll take them to the next step. Okay, so when those eggs are disinfected, we can bring them into the incubator, which is this room here. So we'd have them in one of those coolers. We would rinse any of the iodine off of them, and we'll bring them over here and we measure them out. So this is a 1-quart graduated cylinder. So we would measure them into here with this, and then bring them over to one of these jars that would be running with water in it. On these jars, the water comes in, and then it surges up through the plate and through those eggs. That makes the eggs very gently churn. They all get good oxygen, good water, and then the water then spills out and flows on out the building. So they sit in here. At this point, they'd be what we call a green egg. A green egg is an egg that has no development that you can see with the naked eye. There'd be lots of cell dividing and lots of things going on in that egg, but you would need a microscope in order to see it. With the Snake River cutthroat, after about 20-21 days, then they become what we call an eyed egg. An eyed egg is simply an egg that you can see the eye of the developing fry in. So if you looked at them, kind of like the eggs up top that we looked at that have the little fry growing in it, all you would see are two little black dots. When the eggs are green eggs, they are very, very delicate. So we keep this room locked up and don't allow tourists to come in, because if somebody came in and bashed into it, you could literally kill every single egg in it. Once the eggs are eyed, we can handle them again. So if this were full, what you would see is a whole bunch of eggs. It would be plumb full of eggs. The live eggs would be a rich orange color. Some of them would not be live because either they weren't fertilized or they had a major congenital birth defect that caused them to die. Those eggs would be white in color. So once they're eyed, we can pull those eggs out of the jar and we bring them over to our egg picker. With this egg picker, the wheel goes here. There's a little spindle on the back side here that this sits on, and this will turn around. The eggs go in this big hopper here. When we turn the machine on, this wheel spins round and round. There's a light and a sensor on this side of the machine. The light shines through the egg. If the sensor can see light on the other side, because the good eggs, the orange eggs, are translucent, or light will shine through them. As long as it sees light on the other side, it lets that egg continue on around, and it's washed off and it comes out into a basket that we'll have on this side of the trough. If the egg is one of the white dead eggs, they are not translucent. So the sensor does not see light. It uses a little burst of air and shoots the egg out, and it comes to a basket on this side. The machine isn't 100% effective. We'll still have about 1-2% that we'll have to pick out on our own. But on a species like Snake River cutthroat, we expect about a 75% to 80% viability on the eggs that we bring in. Which means out of every 10 eggs that you get in, we expect about 8 of those eggs to be good eggs that are gonna be an eyed egg that we can then ship to another facility or take up to the hatchery. So if we bring in 100,000 eggs, we would end up needing to take off 20 to 25,000 eggs out of those. In the old days, that was done with an egg picker.
Oh, man.
And you would literally ask anybody you could con to come over and help you pick eggs, because it would take days to do so.
Yeah.
With the egg picker we have now, we can pick 100,000 eggs easily before lunch.
Okay.
So once those eggs are picked, then depending on where those eggs are going, we can either take them up to the hatchery and put them in baskets like those brook trout were, and we'll hatch them out for our own use, or we can send them to another facility in state or even a facility out of state. If we're sending them out of state, we'll use a cooler like this. This is an egg shipping cooler. You'll notice it's essentially a styrofoam cooler with a whole bunch of trays in it. So what we'll do is generally leave the bottom tray empty to collect water, and then each tray will hold about a quart of eggs. So we'll load, we put a heavy cloth, industrial cloth, we'll put the eggs on that, wrap them up, all nice and pretty like a Christmas present, and then we layer them layer by layer, depending on how many we're looking to send. And then the top tray, we load full of ice. Put a little bit of water to start it melting, seal it up, give it to FedEx, and it gets sent on its way. We send a lot of eggs this way. For example, to the Norfolk Fish Hatchery, we send about 400,000 Snake River cutthroat eggs annually. And that's part of the federal system. And the neat thing about the federal system is you can put a fish in one place and we can get back from it things like catfish and walleye and bass, perch, a lot of the warm and cool water fish that we do not have the facilities to raise ourselves. So that's how we're able to get a lot of the species that sportsmen are looking for that we're not able to raise ourselves.
Okay, so how do you become, I guess, a scientist or whatever you want to call yourself that works for the fish hatchery?
Well, the people that start in the fish hatcheries are what we call fish culturists. And our trade is fish culture, which culture in biology means to raise or grow, so we grow fish. In order to become a fish culturist, the state of Wyoming requires a bachelor's degree in a biological or zoological type field. So zoology, biology, fisheries biology, any number of things like that. So it does take a science and math background in order to get into this field.
Where'd you go to school? College?
I went to Colorado State University.
Okay. And you got your bachelor's degree in
biology and zoology.
Okay. And then how did you get into this job, I guess?
Well, I was looking for something that was animal related. I wasn't really sure what in particular I wanted to do, and stumbled into fish hatcheries. And I've always liked fish. I had aquariums and enjoyed that. And so I gave it a shot, and it worked out well.
Here you are.
Yeah.
So you were telling me about how this is staffed. How many staff live and work here?
There's 3 permanent employees, so the superintendent, myself, and a fish culturist. And then in the summer we have a summer temporary that for our facility runs about 3 to 4 months. Some of the facilities have a little bit longer temporary time. And so that would be where if somebody were looking to get into the field, they would generally start by applying for a summer temp position. They get in, they learn about it, see if it fits for them. Because this is an isolated type job. You know, we're out here, most of the facilities are not near town, certainly not near a large town. And so it does take a person that tends to be more independent-minded and more of a self-starter, go-getter type individual, and somebody who's comfortable with being 100 miles away from the nearest large town.
So what do you do kind of on a day-to-day basis? What do you do in your job here?
So every day we have what we call routines. The facility runs a lot like a farm or a ranch. So you come in and you do your chores, which with fish involves feeding them, cleaning the tanks, and doing whatever other preparations need to be done for the day. And then once that's done, then we can do whatever maintenance or projects that we need to do. We generally do whatever maintenance and upkeep that we can on our own. We do a lot of our own fabrication of equipment that we need, and so, like I say, it runs like a lot like a farm.
Okay. Cool. Well, thank you very much, Brian. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
That was pretty cool, guys. Thanks for coming on this field trip with me to the Wyoming Fish Hatchery, located just outside of Wyoming in Idaho. Kind of different. How many hatcheries are there in Wyoming, would you guess?
We have 10 facilities in the state.
Just scattered all over. Okay.
They're mostly in the northwestern part of the state.
Okay.
We have one in Casper. That's our most southeastern facility.
Okay. So if you guys are anywhere near a fish hatchery, look one up. They let people come on tours all the time, and you can go see one for yourself. See some of the things that maybe you didn't get to see here, or if they have different types of fish. So thanks for coming. See you guys. It goes.